TomoNews presents Bacteria. Pregnant woman dies after getting accidentally stuck in a guardrail. A pregnant woman died after accidentally getting her head stuck in a guardrail in the street in China. A 30-year-old woman who was pregnant with twins allegedly became dizzy while walking on a street alone in Mizi, Shaanxi province in China. She then tried to lean on the guardrail to get some rest, but somehow fainted and her head became stuck inside the railing. The woman reportedly suffocated, with her babies also dying inside her womb. Several passerby tried to break the railing with their bare hands when they saw what was happening, but they weren't able to save the woman and her babies. Local authorities say they have eliminated the possibility of homicide, but they are still investigating the cause of her death. Woman goes blind in one eye after mud run. A Texas woman is now blind in one eye after she was infected with flesh-eating bacteria while competing in a mud run in Dallas earlier this month. Flesh-eating bacteria is an infection caused by the bacterium Streptococcus pyogenes. The bacteria can enter the human body through minor cuts or abrasions. Once inside the body, the bacteria produces toxins that destroy tissue, such as muscles, skin, and fat. Brittany Williams caught the flesh-eating bacteria after cutting her eye during a Dallas mud run around 2 weeks ago, and within 24 hours the bacteria had destroyed her cornea. Williams has 2 jobs but no health insurance. Her family has set up a fundraising campaign to collect money to cover her $100,000 medical bills.
Grandmother feeds deadly bacteria to 2-year-old baby. In Zhejiang, a 2-year-old baby girl was checked into emergency services vomiting blood from a severe ulcer. How does a baby get an ulcer? Particularly one so bad that she begins puking blood? It's definitely not from excessive alcohol, coffee, or smoking. This adorable little girl, nicknamed Dolly, spent most of her days at home with her grandmother. When her parents brought her to emergency pediatrics care, they told doctors that Dolly was usually a happy, cheerful baby who had a good appetite. But earlier this month, things changed. Dolly became fussy and often twisted her little body as though she were in pain. She ate very little or refused to eat at all. When her mother prepared her a bottle for bed, Dolly took a few gulps, then promptly threw it all back up. Her mother tried giving her a little water later, but Dolly threw that up as well. This time her mother noticed that the vomit wasn't a milky white, but a deep, dark, reddish brown, so her parents rushed her to hospital. At the hospital, the doctors diagnosed Dolly with the Helicobacter pylori, a clever bad bug that can survive in the acidic soup inside our stomachs. It will produce ammonia to protect itself from the acid until it is able to burrow its way into the stomach lining. Doctors asked that all the family members be tested for the bacteria, and it was only after they found it in Dolly's grandmother that she confessed that sometimes she would feed chewed up food to the baby. Dolly will have to spend a few days in hospital, but the bacteria can be cured with a heavy round of antibiotics.
Bacteria found at Florida beaches and in raw oysters can kill. A bacteria present in the Gulf of Mexico is causing some concern for Florida beachgoers. Vibrio vulnificus is a bacteria from the same family as cholera. It is most commonly found in warm coastal waters as it requires salt to survive. While infections are rare, the bacteria normally infects people who enter coastal waters with an open wound, or those who consume undercooked or raw oysters. Contrary to some reports, the bacteria doesn't eat flesh, but it can still harm the skin. If the bacteria enters the bloodstream, it can then damage the skin, and in 50% of such cases is fatal. Oysters feed by filtering water, from which they extract algae and food particles, and sometimes the Vibrio vulnificus bacteria. If an infected oyster is eaten undercooked or raw, the bacteria can enter the individual's digestive tract and multiply rapidly. According to the Florida Department of Health, the bacteria has infected 214 people and killed 66 since 2008.
2 deaths at a hospital in Los Angeles, California are linked to the spread of deadly antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Almost 200 patients at LA's Ronald Reagan Medical Center may have been exposed to the deadly bacteria carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriaceae, or CRE. Patients at UCLA's Ronald Reagan Medical Center may have been exposed to CRE during their endoscopy procedure. The hospital says that 2 of their fiber optic endoscope tubes were contaminated, despite the hospital's rigorous sterilization procedure. CRE enters the bloodstream, where it usually causes infections there, as well as in the lungs and in the bladder. Antibiotics have no impact on the infections. The bacteria is thought to have contributed to the deaths of 2 of the 7 patients at the hospital who were infected with CRE. The bacteria impacts people whose immune systems are already weak and is linked to the approximately 23,000 deaths a year.
Poop-loving bacteria found living in beards. Local news station KOAT7 in Albuquerque swabbed a bunch of beards and sent their collection to a microbiologist for testing. What they reported has some men reaching for the razor. Their beards may be as dirty as a toilet. The same bacteria that microbiologist John Golobic found in beards is also found in fecal matter. He identified the bacteria as Enterobacteriaceae, which normally lives in the intestines, so it's no surprise that it's found in poop. But how does it end up in men's beards? The truth is, enterics are found almost everywhere, such as your phone and computer keyboard. Think about all the money you touch, the doors you open, and the hands you shake. And then you touch your beard. More important than washing your beard is washing your hands, and you should stop touching your face. This applies to kids, clean-shaven men, and women too. The bacteria of toilet bowls live all around you. And unless you live in a clean lab, even your toothbrush contains Enterobacteriaceae. So relax, fellas, your beards aren't really filled with poop. Well, no more than the rest of your daily items.
Deadly bacteria released at Tulane University's National Primate Research Center infected 4 macaques and 1 federal health inspector. Since the bacteria's release from Tulane's research center last November, 2 of the infected macaques have been euthanized. Tulane University's Biosafety Level 3 laboratory, located 35 miles north of New Orleans, has been studying the bacteria Burkholderia pseudomalae in the hopes of developing a vaccine for the deadly bacteria. The bacteria spreads to humans and animals when they come into contact with contaminated soil and water. 4 macaques who were living in Tulane's primate breeding colony and not involved at all with the bacteria research were somehow exposed to the bacteria. One theory is that the macaques may have been exposed to the bacteria when they were in the school's veterinary hospital. A federal health inspector became ill after visiting the facility in January. The presence of certain antibodies in her body showed she had been exposed to the bacteria. The proximity of the center's breeding colonies to a local school and residential areas has prompted fears of the bacteria spreading to nearby communities. So far, limited preliminary research shows that the bacteria has not contaminated the soil and water in the center's breeding colonies. However, questions remain about the cause and extent of the contamination that has impacted the macaques. Contamination fears spark EGGO waffle recall. Kellogg recalled 10,000 cases of EGGO Nutri-Grain whole wheat waffles in 25 U.S. states on Monday due to potential risks of Listeria contamination. Listeria monocytogenes bacteria is commonly found in soil and water. Vegetables can be contaminated with the bacteria from soil, while animals can carry it without appearing ill and can infect meat and dairy products. Once inside food, the bacteria can spread to processing facilities, where it can survive for years, multiplying and contaminating other products. The bacteria can even survive being frozen and can spread to the freezer where the contaminated food is stored. When a person eats food containing Listeria monocytogenes, the bacteria can spread in the body and cause an infection, with symptoms including fever and muscle aches. CRF Frozen Foods announced a nationwide recall of almost 360 frozen fruits and vegetables after a Listeria outbreak in May. Meanwhile, ice cream brand Bluebell recalled its products everywhere after a large Listeria outbreak last year.
Mysterious ELIZABETHKINGIA bacteria claims 20 lives. A mysterious bacteria known as ELIZABETHKINGIA has killed 20 people in the Midwest in the United States. The ELIZABETHKINGIA bacteria can be found in soil, river, and reservoirs worldwide. It can cause meningitis in newborn babies and meningitis or bloodstream and respiratory infections in people, typically older, with compromised immune systems. Symptoms of the ELIZABETHKINGIA infection may include fever, chills, headache and neck pain, as well as skin infections. There have been 61 confirmed cases in total in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Illinois, in which 18 people were confirmed dead in Wisconsin, 1 in Michigan, and 1 in Illinois. Doctors are actively investigating the origin of the infection and the cause of the multi-state outbreak.
Bluebell knew its ice cream was tainted with deadly bacteria. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has released a report stating that Bluebell knew about the bacteria Listeria in their manufacturing plants dating all the way back to 2013. Listeria originates from water, soil, and infected animals and makes its way into food plants. The bacteria is difficult to track as it can withstand refrigeration temperatures and exist in frozen products for years. Most healthy adults are not at high risk of becoming seriously ill from Listeria. The people most susceptible to the bacteria are pregnant women, infants, elderly people, and those with compromised immune systems. The symptoms of listeriosis include muscle aches, diarrhea, headache, stiff neck, and confusion. The best way consumers can avoid infection is to wash fruits and vegetables completely and cook food thoroughly. According to Forbes, the Center of Disease Control has reported 8 outbreaks of Listeria since 2011. 5 of these outbreaks have occurred since 2014.
More reported cases of the deadly superbug. 2 more hospitals have reported that some of their patients were infected by the carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriaceae, also known as the CRE superbug. The Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center reported that 179 patients may have been exposed to CRE. 7 patients were infected, contributing to 2 of their deaths. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles reported Thursday that 67 of their patients were potentially exposed to the deadly bacteria, with 4 confirmed infections. Hartford Hospital reported 180 patients may have been exposed and at least 5 patients were infected. CNN reported that the $30,000 duendoscope used on the infected patients was often cleaned with a $1 toothbrush. The scope, made by Olympus Corp, has a hard-to-clean elevator channel, which may have carried the germs into patients' bodies. Once inside the body, the antibiotic-resistant bacteria contaminate the bacteria in the gallbladder or pancreas. Antibiotics usually work by rupturing the cell walls of uncontaminated bacteria. But bacteria with antibiotic-resistant genes are able to defend themselves by throwing antibiotics out of the cell, by degrading the antibiotic, or by altering the antibiotic. Superbug infections affect the host's lungs or bladder and may cause death in up to 50% of cases, according to the CDC.
What you need to know about Vibrio, the flesh-eating bacteria. On June 23rd, 50-year-old Brian Parrott had to have his leg amputated after he contracted a flesh-eating bacterial infection similar to the one pictured here, known as vibriosis. The flesh-eating hook-shaped bacteria is called Vibrio, of which there are about a dozen species. The bacteria is known to survive in warm, coastal areas of brackish or salt water. Even the slightest of open wounds exposed to contaminated water allows the bacteria to enter the body. Species of Vibrio are also known to invade the body through the consumption of bottom-dwelling, bacteria-collecting seafood and shellfish, like oysters. If the bacteria manages to enter the bloodstream, it can cause diarrhea, vomiting, skin lesions, and death. Those with weakened immune systems are more susceptible to infection. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention estimate 80,000 cases of vibriosis develop each year, with roughly 100 resulting in death. The bacteria most commonly spreads during the summer months from May to October, with roughly 65% of cases resulting from eating contaminated seafood. The Texas Department of State Health Services claims most people who come into contact with the bacteria through open waters do not develop infection.
This solar panel runs on bacteria power. Researchers at Binghamton University have come up with an interesting way to harness energy using a resource we have far too much of: bacteria. To harness power from bacteria, scientists arranged 9 biosolar cells in a 3x3 pattern to form a scalable and stackable panel. The cells use cyanobacteria, which can be found in aquatic and terrestrial habitats, as a source of clean and sustainable energy. In the daytime, oxygen and electrons are released through photosynthetic reactions. At night, electrons are produced from the bacteria's respiratory activities. 5.59 microwatts were generated in 12-hour day-to-night cycles over a total of 60 hours. Solar panels produce about 200 watts in a 6x10 configuration. The biosolar cells in the same pattern will only generate 3.726 100,000th watts. Though not the most efficient, the technology has the potential to be a more reliable energy source. Once the panel is functional, it could power small wireless systems in remote areas where frequent battery changes are impractical. The Binghamton team's work has been published in the journal Sensors and Actuators B Chemical.
Gyms are covered in bacteria more filthy than your toilet. Researchers at FitRated, a fitness equipment review company, released results of a study it conducted at 3 different gyms examining germs left on machines. Sampling 27 pieces of equipment such as treadmills, exercise bikes, and free weights, the researchers were looking for 4 different kinds of bacteria, some known for their resistance to antibiotics or for causing pneumonia, skin infections, and respiratory illnesses. From examining the exercise bicycles, the researchers found 39 times the amount of bacteria you might find on a plastic reusable cafeteria tray. From examining the treadmills, the researchers discovered more than 74 times the amount of bacteria you would normally find on a water faucet. And from taking a closer look at free weights, the researchers found more than 362 times the amount of bacteria you'd expect to find on the average toilet seat. Each piece of equipment sampled was covered in more than 1 million square inches of germs, and more than 70% of the bacteria found was proven to be harmful to humans. So maybe next time you hit the gym, remember to use workout gloves and soap, because as we now know, most gym rats are dirtbags. No offense.